Alright, we're back on Jeep content. Couple of things to do today. The first thing is, I thought that the track width in the rear was wider than the front. Because as you can see, that tire kind of sticks out a little bit. And this one doesn't. And then this one doesn't. But then neither does that. So I think the rear end is a bit off center to the driver's side. I did look under it, and there is an adjustable panhard bar, or track rod, or whatever they would call it. So I'm going to get under there and move that rear end over till it's centered. That shouldn't be a big deal. But the other thing we got is a winch. Got us a nice 8,000 pound worn winch to go with our worn winch attachment plate, to go with our worn bumper. And so I think that's the first thing I'm going to do today, is try to get that winch in, see if I can get it wired up, see if we can get it working. And yeah, I think I may have to take the whole bumper off to do it, because there's a big bull bar under here, like 3-inch diameter bar, and it's hiding these bolts for this light, which obviously needs to come off. The winch mount bolts in place of these. I don't think I'm going to put these back on, since I already have these that I can put shackles in, and it's a stronger point anyway. But yeah, so we're going to pop that thing open, see if there's any interesting instructions, and then figure out how to get that light bar off of here. Yeah, well, so far that's been pretty simple. Just following the instructions. Got the fair lead mounted, the winch mounted to the frame. Did have to pop the bumper off to get that light out. If you don't have that light, you don't even have to do that. But you do have to remove the plastic cover and the front sway bar mount bolt, because that's used as part of the winch mount, which is nice. Gives it a nice beefy mount. Uh-oh, one of my underglow lights let loose. I'll have to get that stuck back where it goes. Okay, now I guess it's just figuring out how to hook this unit up. It looks like it may just be positive and negative, which will go somewhere in there. Neat. It's almost too easy. Really cool. I'm assuming the unit has fuse protection built in. If you want, I believe you can actually relocate this box, the control box, off of the top of it and mount it somewhere else. I'm going to try to run it like this to see if this hurts the cooling at all. It may, but we will certainly give that a test. She's a unit. It looks good. Everything came apart nice and easy. I got the lights unplugged just so I could drop the bumper out. Plug those back in a little bit. So yeah, now we're going to try to figure out how to route all those wires. See if we can't finish this. This is shockingly easy when you have the correct parts for the for the system. Super pleased so far. Alright, got the old wires run. Super simple. They actually had the right size holes for the different size studs. Factory length is perfect. And yeah, I mean, I'm happy with that. This is ultra easy installation. I am amazed. I figured this was going to take an eon just because everything does. But I'll give Warren credit. If you've got one of their bumpers, get one of their mounts. It is super simple. You know, everything just bolts right back in. I was actually able to use the tow hooks by flipping them around and left them in there. And yeah, she's solid. The only thing is we don't have our pretty little Jeep cover anymore, but that's okay. This is a little bit more functional. So now we're going to figure out how to get the rope on this thing, I guess. Or first off, I guess turn it on and see if it works. I mean, right now it's hooked up. I should just be able to plug the handle in and it should function. Oh my goodness, it's hot. got the old handle, very beefy. I think that's going to go in here. Nope, goes down. There. Woo! Just that simple. Absolutely stunning. And while this is considered a wired winch, they do have an option, which I did get, which is a doodad that plugs into here and allows you to Bluetooth the winch to your phone so that you can actually control it from, wirelessly, rather than spending the extra $1,000 for the full-on super monster wireless winch, which is a 10K, which I don't really need. I don't even need the 8K. This thing's probably be good with a 6, but I wanted one of their top-of-the-line units with the synthetic rope, so this is what we got. If nothing else, if I ever have to pull it out of a canyon, I can just single line it, because I don't think this weighs 8,000 pounds. So, all right, well, now we're going to read the gigantic instruction manual. That came with the rope. I'm assuming this is in multiple languages because everything else is, but it's kind of funny. I'm going to try to get her hooked up. All right. Well, that was the only difficult part so far, is getting the rope and the rope lock in there. You can see a little wedge with the slot in it. You got to pull the rope through far enough to get that in, and then you got to pull it back. But they only give you this little piece of wire, and that was not up to the task, so I used that so as not to damage it, and we were able to get it in there. But my goodness, that took a little bit of effort, because it was parked all the way up to this black shroud in this hole, and it was just barely enough to get that in and started. Once it was started, it wasn't bad. You could set it, and then I used a little hammer to tap it in with that slot, and now I think we're good. But that was a little tricky. So now we're going to see if there's anything special about winding this thing up. All right, there she is. All hooked up, and it works. All wrapped up. Ready to get even more stuck, or stuck at all, because I didn't get stuck last time because I knew I couldn't get out if I did. So, really not too bad. The worst part was getting that rope attached. Once that was done, everything else, once that was done, everything else was pretty easy. No issues at all. Very, very nice setup. Super happy with it. So, all right, well, that's going to be it for right now, because I got to straighten that rear end out, but I'm dripping all over the floor and everything, so I got to go cool off, and then maybe we'll tackle that later. All right, I've been slowly working on this thing, and I've just about got it centered now. Basically, you've got your, I don't know what they call it, a drag link or a panhard rod that goes from over there on the passenger side to over here on the driver's side. So it goes from the frame to the axle. And the different lengths of this will, move the rear end. So obviously if you increase the length here on this piece here, it's going to push your rear end over to the driver's side. If you shorten it, it's going to pull the rear end over to the passenger side. So that's what I've been doing. I've been shortening it. The only way to do this, unfortunately, is to pull the whole thing out, because it's not adjustable without removing it. And you cannot get this end out you just can't get this end out of that holder without removing the whole thing, and because of the bend in it, you can't spin it if you just pull this side out. So the whole thing has to come out. So you got to pull that bolt, and there's a bolt through here And there's a nut way up in there, which is almost impossible to see, and it's very difficult to put back on. It's a pain. I found the best way to do it is to leave the weight on the Jeep. If you hang it, it gets tight and the bolts don't come out. So the best thing to do is just get yourself a big wrench if you got one, and crack that loose. I've been using a pipe wrench just to grab it and crack that nut loose first, because once it comes out, there's no leverage on it. But then you got to pull those. I think it's 19 and 17s, I think. And once it comes out, I will kind of show you what you need to do. I got to go about another maybe 4 turns, and I think I'm going to have it done. Alright, so there it is. Anyway, size-wise, the bolt heads on these are 15s, I think. Yep. And the nut on mine on the driver's side is a 19. The nut on the passenger side is a 17. So, of course it is. Anyway, let's set this up. This is what you're left with after you loosen that up. And so you just 1, 2, we'll go 3. There. And that's it. You just crank it in. Now there are a couple of bushings that go in here. You got to make sure that you keep the bushings in. These are in good enough shape. I don't think they're not loose. They do slide out, but they're not loose. You can kind of see one over there and one over there. Bumped me in the head. But yeah, after you do that, you can put it back in. And the best bet is to start setting the driver's side first, because it's the one that's hardest to get in as far as lining it up, and then you can kind of push the body over a little bit and shake it, and you can get the passenger side to center up. So again, we're not taking any weight off. The bolts were, you know, once loosened them up, they just slid right out when it's sitting on the axles like this. So that's the way to do it. Or you're going to put it on jack stands and set the axle on the jack stand, just to keep the weight on it, which will make sure this stays loose. So we're going to go back in there, try to get this disaster put back together, and see where we can go from there. Alright, so after that last adjustment, and we took it out for a bit of a drive, I think I'm happy with it finally. The track seems to be aligned front to back, so that's it. It's not hard to do it, but you got to turn it a lot more than I thought. I probably went in 15 turns to get that centered. I really do think that they tried, but they had centered it up when it was hanging rather than when it was had weight on it. And so you want it in its normal travel here when it's centered, so then it can move side to side as it needs to as you're flexing and driving and bumping and stuff. I'd had that same issue on the hot rod when I was playing with the original suspension on that thing, and I did the same thing, and then noticed, hey, this is rubbing the fender. So I had to fix it with the weight on it. But there we go. So that's the winch installation. Not much of that shown. And then how to center the rear end on one of these things with a stock suspension anyway. So we're going to get to something new today, and we'll show that, probably parts of it anyway, in the next video. Hope you all are doing well. Take care.